The stars were quiet over the rim. A mining colony called Varen Point floated above a dusty yellow world, far away from the shining core of the Galactic Union. From the outside, the colony looked small and fragile. Its metal towers rose into the black sky like thin bones. Its lights flickered against the darkness. Inside the command center, alarms had been ringing for 2 hours. The emergency message had gone out again and again across Union space. The message was short and desperate. Varen, Point under attack. Outer defenses failing. Any fleet respond? The message carried the weight of fear in every word. Commander Rel stood in front of the main screen. He was a tall man with calm eyes, but there was nothing calm inside him now. His hands were shaking, and he kept staring at the list of possible allies. One by one, the list stayed gray. No answer. They heard us, said Laren, the young technician at the console. Her voice was low. The Union hubs received the signal. I confirmed the return ping, but no fleet is coming. Rel's jaw tightened. He had always trusted the Union. They promised that no colony would ever stand alone. But here they were, waiting for a miracle that did not come. Keep broadcasting, he said. Keep the channel open. Laren nodded and pressed the button again. The colony's communication tower sent the signal out once more. It passed through empty space, through trade routes, through systems filled with strong ships. But those ships would not move. Varen Point was a frontier outpost. It did not have rich resources or political power. Saving it would bring risk without reward. Outside the station, the enemy moved closer. It was not a fleet of known species. It was a swarm. Countless dark shapes crawled through space like shadows. They had no banners. They made no demands. They only destroyed. Colonies that faced them usually vanished within a day. Outer shield is down to 30%, said Laren. Her fingers moved fast on the console. We have maybe 4 hours before they break through completely. Rel looked around the room. His crew was small. Miners, engineers, a few security teams. They were not soldiers. They could not fight an entire swarm. They were supposed to hold on until help arrived. But no help was coming. In the cargo bay, families gathered. Mothers held their children close. Old miners whispered prayers. Some people stared out through the small windows, watching the distant flickers of the swarm. The stars were beautiful but cold. Rel returned to the center console and spoke through the general comm. This is Commander Rel. All civilians move to the lower shelter levels. Engineering, secure power to the inner shield. Medical, prepare for injuries. We hold as long as we can. His voice was steady, but deep inside he felt the weight of what might come. He knew they were standing against something far bigger than themselves. Laren's console beeped softly. She frowned and checked the reading again. Commander, she said, her voice unsure. We have a new signal. It's not from the Union fleets. It's from Earth. The room went silent. Earth was not part of the Union's inner fleets. It was a place known for harsh lands, violent storms, and dangerous creatures. Many species feared its people. Humans had joined the Union late, and their reputation was strange. Some saw them as unpredictable. Others saw them as the last ones who would fight when everyone else ran. Rel stepped closer to the console. Show it on the main screen. The colony's big display flickered, and a small symbol appeared. A simple human emblem with black and red lines. A message followed. Earth received the distress call. Response team en route. Rel stared at the words. How many ships? He asked Laren check the data. Only 5 ships, Commander. Small strike group. Not a full fleet. One of the engineers, a short man named Kor, let out a dry laugh. 5 ships against that swarm? Are they mad? Rel didn't answer. He knew about Earth's soldiers. They did not send many ships because they did not need many. Deathworlders trained to fight in the most brutal conditions. Their warships were not the biggest. They were fast and armed with weapons designed to break things apart with precision. How long? Rel asked. 17 minutes, said Laren. They're burning engines hard. Rel turned toward the crew. Prepare the landing corridor. Open docking channels. Let them through when they arrive. The engineers rushed to their posts. Alarms continued to echo, but for the first time a new sound joined them. The sound of engines coming from deep space. Outside, the blackness shifted. 5 shapes broke through the dark. They were sharp, with dark holes and angled armor that made them look like predators from a nightmare. They did not follow the usual flight formations of the Union fleets. They moved like hunters in a pack, tight and fast. The lead ship transmitted a short signal. No greetings, no formal phrases. Just one line, target coordinates. Laren typed fast, sending coordinates now. Rel leaned forward and watched the display. The human ship split apart and accelerated. One of them went straight into the middle of the swarm. Another dropped low near the planet. The other 3 spread out like claws. Who commands them? Kor asked. Rel checked the incoming manifest. The name was simple. Commander Rion. No rank insignia from the Union. Only Earth's own symbol. The swarm began to shift its formation. It had sensed the new threat. Thousands of hostile shapes turned toward the 5 incoming ships. The enemy thought they were small prey. They were wrong. The lead human ship fired its engines to full burn. It dived into the swarm without slowing down. Then, bright flashes appeared across space. Precision strikes. No wasted shots. The swarm's outer ring cracked as if a hammer had struck it. Rel and his crew watched the battle unfold on the screen. They expected to see the human ships torn apart. Instead, they saw something else. The human ships moved like they were born in the storm. They spun between enemy lines. They used gravity to slingshot around debris. They fired not in random bursts, but in patterns that cut through the swarm's structure. The enemy tried to close in. The humans answered with speed. Inside the command center, the colony crew held their breath. Someone whispered, "They're actually winning." Rel did not look away. He saw how the human ships fought. No fear, no hesitation. Every move was like a knife through fabric. Commander Laren said, her voice rising with something new. "They're opening a channel." "Put it through," Rel said. A calm human voice filled the room. "This is Commander Rion of Earth Strike Group. Hold your defenses. Keep civilians secured. We'll clear your sky." The voice was steady like a stone in a storm, Rel answered. "Varen Point thanks you, Commander. You're outnumbered 10-1. Rion's reply came without a pause. "We've seen worse." Then the channel closed. The battle grew louder. Explosions lit the black space. The swarm tried to reorganize, but the humans broke them again. The colony's shield trembled, but it still held. The people inside the shelter listened to the sound of distant rumbling. Not sure if it was the end or the beginning of something new. In the medical bay, old miner Brick sat on a cot, holding his granddaughter's hand. She asked in a small voice, "Who came to help us?" Brick smiled weakly. "Humans, the Deathworlders." The girl tilted her head. "Why would they help us?" "No one else did." Brick looked toward the ceiling as if he could see the stars through the metal. "Because that's what they do. When others turn away, they run toward the fire." Rel stood in front of the main screen, watching the 5 small ships fight like a storm. For the first time that night, the tightness in his chest loosened. They still might fall. The swarm was vast, but they were no longer alone. The Union had stayed silent. The great fleets had turned their backs, but Earth had answered, outside. The human ships burned brighter against the darkness. Rel whispered under his breath, "Let them come." The black of space shone with flashes of light as the 5 human ships moved between the enemy swarm. The colony's command center watched the scene unfold on their wide screen. The sound of distant impacts came through the station's walls like soft thunder. The shields shook, but they held for now. Commander Rel stood at the main console. His eyes were fixed on the glowing markers that showed the human ships. They were small compared to the swarm, but they did not slow down. They flew in straight lines, sharp angles, and fast turns. The enemy tried to close in from different sides, but the humans moved faster. It was like watching fire dance in the wind. They're cutting through them. said Laren. Her hands moved quickly over the controls. 3 enemy clusters are already broken. I've never seen anyone fly like this. They trained on Earth, said Rel softly. That world builds a different kind of fighter. Outside, the lead human ship burned through a line of swarm fighters. Its weapons did not fire in wild bursts. Each shot was aimed. Each strike hit something important. The enemy tried to rebuild their formation, but the humans scattered them again and again. In the lower shelter levels, hundreds of civilians sat together. The sound of distant explosions vibrated through the metal floor. People held hands, prayed, or stared at the ceiling. Some whispered about the humans who had come. They had heard stories of Deathworlders before. Some were stories of fear. Some were stories of courage. Now they were seeing the truth with their own eyes. Old Miner Brick sat against the wall with his granddaughter in his arms. The little girl asked, "Are they winning?" Brick looked up. The sound of another distant blast echoed through the shelter. "They are fighting," he said. "And when humans fight, they do not stop." Back in the command center, the screen flashed as a message arrived from the human strike group. Laren opened the channel. Commander Rion's voice came through. It was calm and steady. "This is Rian. We are holding the swarm for now. They are larger than expected. We will begin ground support in 3 minutes. Prepare your landing corridor. We will send drop units to secure the main shield generators." Rel answered, "Understood." "We will clear the landing corridor." Engineers and security teams rushed through the corridors. Heavy blast doors opened. The landing corridor filled with bright guiding lights. This area had not seen visitors in a long time. The Union rarely came to Varen Point. Rel turned to Laren. "Keep the channel open with their lead ship. We need to match their landing time exactly." Laren nodded. "Yes, Commander." The human ships changed formation outside the colony. 3 stayed in combat, spinning through enemy lines like sharp blades. 2 others lowered their engines and began their descent toward the colony's outer airlocks. The swarm followed, but the remaining human ships pushed them back. They did not give the enemy space to breathe as the 2 ships entered the landing corridor. Their engines glowed like controlled fire. The doors opened with a loud metal hiss. Thick landing gear slammed onto the platform, the air filled with the scent of heated metal. The first soldiers walked out. They were not tall giants. They were humans in dark armor, their movements smooth and sure. Their helmets covered their faces completely. Their boots struck the floor with a hard rhythm. Every step sounded like a promise. Commander Rel stepped forward to meet them. He was not sure what to expect. These were Deathworlders. The stories said they were strange. Some said they were reckless. Some said they were cold. But as the lead soldier removed the helmet, what Rel saw was not reckless. The man had calm eyes. His hair was short. His voice was steady when he spoke. "Commander Rel." "Yes," Rel answered. "I am Commander Rion, Earth Strike Group." Rel nodded. "Welcome to Varen Point." Rion's eyes scanned the corridor and the nearby soldiers. "We are here to keep you alive. Your shield generators must be protected. The swarm will focus on breaking them next." Rel walked beside him. "We have a few security teams, but they are miners, not trained soldiers." Rion adjusted the strap on his weapon. "Then they stay near the shelters. My team will handle the front line. You focus on keeping power running. If the shield falls, the swarm lands. If they land, they eat through everything." Rel felt the cold truth in those words. Understood. Behind Rion, more soldiers moved. They carried heavy packs and crates filled with tools and devices that Rel had never seen. Some set up portable barriers. Others connected strange pods to the walls. Their movements were fast and silent. Every action had a clear purpose. Laren's voice came through the com. "Commander, the swarm is forming a new wave on the north side of the colony. 30 fighters, maybe more." Rion's eyes narrowed slightly. "They are testing our shield. They will strike hard soon. We hit them first." He turned to his team. "Unit 1, rooftop positions. Unit 2, inside the shield ring. Keep them away from the generators. Unit 3, mobile support. The soldiers moved without hesitation. They did not shout or panic. They acted like they had done this many times before. Rel followed Rian to the upper walkway of the colony dome. From there they could see the distant swarm. It looked like a black wave against the stars. Rel said quietly. There are so many, Rian replied. Good, we came for a fight. Outside the colony, the 3 human ships in space shifted again. They broke through the enemy's wave with silent speed. Their weapons glimmered like thin lines of fire. Every strike opened a gap. The swarm returned fire. Dozens of blasts crashed against the colony's shield. The dome shook. Inside, people screamed but held on to each other. Shield at 60%, Laren reported. They are focusing their attacks. Rel gripped the railing. Can it hold? Rian checked his wrist display. If we take pressure off the main ring, yes. We need to draw them away. Moments later, 2 human ground units climbed the upper towers and set up rail cannons. They were small compared to the swarm ships, but they were accurate. The first cannon fired. A bright line crossed the black sky. One swarm fighter exploded into fragments. Then another. Then another. The enemy's front line faltered. The swarm sent more fighters toward the colony. The human ships above dove into the mass and spun like burning knives. They created chaos in the enemy ranks. Rel watched in silent awe. He had seen Union fleets fight before. They moved in straight formations, followed standard rules. But humans did not fight like that. They moved like storms. Their ships cut through space like wild predators. Their ground soldiers fought with precision and speed in the shelter level. Brick held his granddaughter as the floor trembled again, but the sounds outside were different now. They were no longer the helpless sounds of defense. They were sharp and powerful. Grandpa, the girl whispered, they are not scared. No, they are humans. They are Deathworlders. They do not know fear like we do. On the rooftop, Rian crouched behind the metal railing and watched the swarm through a narrow visor. He tapped his cum. Unit 1, aim for their forward claws. Break their formation. Unit 2, wait for my mark. Unit 3, move to the western flank, soldier answered. Ready? Rian raised his hand and then dropped it. The rooftop guns fired again. Bright lines crossed the sky. A section of the swarm broke apart. The human ships followed up with precise strikes. In seconds, a large part of the enemy wave turned into drifting pieces of metal. Laren shouted through the cum. Shield is holding at 65%. Their pressure is dropping. Rel felt a rush of relief, but Rian's face did not change. He remained focused. This is not the end, Rian said. They will come again, harder than before. Rel nodded. Then we stand. Another blast hit the shield. The entire colony shook. The civilians screamed, but the walls held. Engineers kept power flowing to the generators. The human soldiers kept their eyes on the black sky in the distance. The swarm moved again. They did not run. They had never met a colony that could resist them. But they had also never met humans. Rel stood beside Rian and watched the stars burn. Why did you come? Rel asked. Rian kept his eyes on the sky. Because you asked. Because no one else answered. Rel felt a weight in his chest. The Union fleets had stayed silent. They had watched a colony about to die. But Earth had come. Not with grand armies, but with warriors who did not flinch in the shelter. Brick whispered to the others around him, "We will live." They are here. Up above, the swarm began to shift again. More enemies gathered in the dark. The next wave would be stronger. The real fight was only beginning. The sky above Varen Point burned with fire. The enemy swarm gathered again in the black of space. Hundreds of their fighters moved together like a storm cloud, covering the stars. Their dark shapes made the horizon heavy and sharp. Their leadership stayed behind the mass, sending silent signals that kept the swarm moving like a single creature. Inside the command center, Commander Rel stood at the main console. The warning lights turned red again. Laren sat at her station with sweat on her forehead. Her eyes moved quickly between numbers and screens. "They are forming a second wave," she said. This one is bigger than the first. They are moving toward the upper shield ring. Rel tightened his grip on the edge of the console. How much shield power left? 60%, Laren answered. We can hold if they attack from one side, but if they split and come from two sides, the shield will break fast. Rel turned toward the landing corridor where Commander Rian and his team had set up their defense. Rian stood in full armor, helmet back on, visor glowing faintly under the corridor lights. His soldiers were checking their weapons and equipment with smooth and practiced movements. Rel walked up to him. The swarm is coming again. This time, they are stronger. Rian's voice was calm. Good. We will stop them here. You make it sound simple, Rel said. Rian's visor reflected the red warning lights. It is not simple, but it is what we do. The colony's loudspeakers carried his words through the upper levels. It gave the crew something they had not felt in hours. Hope Rian raised his hand and gave quick signals to his soldiers. Half of them moved to the outer towers to cover the north and west sides. The others stayed near the shield generators. Portable turrets were placed at key points. A few engineers from the colony helped carry power cells to keep the human equipment running. On the roof, soldiers took position behind barriers. Their rail cannons were ready. Down below, mobile units set up small shield nodes to create extra layers of defense. Outside, the 3 human ships still flying in space spread apart. Their engines flared bright against the black. The swarm moved closer, thick and wide. Their formation split into 2 long lines. One line pushed toward the human ships. The other line moved toward the colony's shield. Laren's voice echoed through the cum. They are splitting their force. North side and east side. Heavy pressure on the east side. Rel looked at Rian. That is exactly what we feared. Rian pressed a control on his wrist. Unit 1, hold north. Unit 2, shift east and take high ground. Unit 3, stay mobile between both sides. Ship team, break their front before they reach the shield. The soldiers moved without shouting. Their discipline filled the air with a quiet strength. The first wave of swarm fighters crashed against the human ships. The humans answered with precise fire. Their ships were smaller, but they flew with sharp angles and fast turns. They struck like arrows, cutting into the swarm lines. Inside the colony, the sound of shield impact grew louder. The swarm's second line began to fire on the eastern dome. Bright streaks of energy splashed against the shield barrier. The entire colony shook. Dust fell from the ceilings of the lower shelter levels. Civilians held each other tightly. Old Miner Brick sat near the wall with his granddaughter in his arms. She looked up as the metal around them trembled again. Are they still fighting? She asked. Brick smiled and touched her hair. Yes, they are humans. They will not run. Above them, the rooftop cannons opened fire. Human soldiers aimed carefully. Each rail shot pierced a swarm fighter. Sparks spread across the sky as enemy ships broke apart. But the swarm did not stop. More fighters came in behind the first line. They pushed forward in tight formation. Their weapons pounded against the shield again and again. Shield at 45%, Laren called out. We cannot hold for long if they keep this pressure, Rel shouted into the cum. Engineering, reroute all spare power to the shield generators. Everything else goes dark. The lights in the colony dimmed. Hallways went black. Only emergency strips stayed on. All the power rushed into the shield ring. Rian climbed to the eastern tower to see the swarm with his own eyes. The enemy fighters were so close now, he could see the flashes of their engines. Their shadows covered the stars completely. He pressed his cum. Unit 2, target their center. Unit 3, prepare to intercept if they break through. Unit 1, keep the north clear, soldier answered. Ready? Rian lifted his arm. The turrets and railguns fired at once. A wall of blue-white light cut through the swarm formation. Several enemy ships exploded. The rest turned to dodge. The neat shape of their attack started to bend in space. One of the human ships looped through the enemy line and fired into their center. The strike broke the swarm's shape even more. Good, Rian muttered. But the swarm adapted fast. A group of 20 fighters peeled away and dove straight toward the colony's eastern shield. They hit the barrier hard. The impact shook the entire station. A second group followed right after. Layer shouted 35%. We are at critical level. Rel's heart pounded. If the shield broke, the swarm would land. And if they landed, the colony would not survive. On the rooftop, the human soldiers worked fast. Their rail cannons targeted the fighters, hitting the shield. The noise was deafening. The cannons fired again and again. Several swarm ships broke apart before they could strike again. Rian jumped down from the tower walkway and ran to the eastern platform. His soldiers moved with him. Their boots hit the metal floor in unison. The sound was steady like a drum. Another blast hit the shield. A bright crack appeared in the energy wall. 29%, Laren called. We are losing it. Rian raised his weapon. His visor glowed red. Open external gates for 30 seconds. Rel turned to him. If you open the gates, they will rush in. Rian's voice stayed calm. They are already at the wall. If we stay behind it, it will break. If we strike first, they fall. Rel hesitated for only a moment. Then he gave the order. Open gates. 30 seconds. The heavy doors on the eastern platform opened wide. Cold air rushed in. The crackling energy shield parted in a narrow gap. The swarm ships saw it and turned toward the opening. But Rian and his soldiers were already moving. They leaped through the gap and landed on the outer platform with rifles raised. Their armor locked against the cold wind. The first wave of swarm fighters came in low. The humans fired as one. Their shots struck the fighters at the weakest points. 3 enemy ships fell in seconds. A fourth crashed into its own line. The swarm tried to circle around, but the human ground team kept moving. They used the platform railings as cover and shot without pause. Their aim was clean and hard. More swarm fighters came closer. Rian signaled Unit 3. The mobile team appeared from the west and joined the fight. For a moment, the eastern platform turned into a storm of fire. From the command center, Rel watched every second. His breath caught as the swarm filled the screen. But the humans did not falter. Their small team stood against a wave that should have swallowed them. 15%, Laren said. But they are not hitting the shield anymore. They are focused on the ground team. Rel clenched his fists. Then the shield will live. Just hold. On the platform, Rian fired again. His rifle sent another fighter spinning away. The enemy tried to rush him, but his soldiers covered his flank. The ground shook as broken ships fell around them. One swarm fighter tried to crash into the platform directly. 2 human soldiers launched a line charge that tore it apart before it could hit. Rian's visor display blinked. A message from the ships above. Strike team here. North side cleared. Enemy formation broken. Target leadership ready for strike. Rian pressed his come. Do it. In space, the 3 human ships turned their weapons toward the large leadership behind the swarm. A beam of fire struck its hull. The massive enemy ship tried to move away, but it was too slow. A second beam followed. On the colony's screens, a bright burst filled the sky. The leadership broke into pieces. The rest of the swarm hesitated. Their movements lost shape. Without their command signals, they were like a river with no direction. Rel whispered, "They are breaking." Rian looked up at the sky from the platform. He saw the enemy lines scatter. Some ships turned and ran. Others drifted without control. The ground soldiers did not chase. They stood where they were and watched the sky clear. Liran's voice came through the come again. Shield holding at 15%. Enemy retreating. Rel walked to the screen. The storm that had covered the stars was fading. 5 small human ships stood in the center of the broken swarm. In the lower shelter, Brick held his granddaughter. She looked up at the ceiling. Is it over? Brick smiled. Not yet, but they made the sky theirs. On the platform, the wind blew across the cracked floor. Rian lowered his rifle slowly. His soldiers stood around him, breathing hard but steady. Rel joined him on the platform. He looked up at the stars where the enemy had been. You broke them, he said. Rian's visor opened. His eyes were calm. They break when someone stands in their way. They are used to fear, not resistance. Rel nodded slowly. You gave us a chance, Rian answered. We are not done. Swarms do not stop after one fight. They will send more. We prepare now. Above them, the human ships circled slowly like dark birds. The stars were visible again. The colony still stood. The shields still glowed, weak but alive. And for the first time, the night over Varen Point was still dark, but it was no longer silent. The sky that had once been covered by the swarm now showed the stars again. Broken fragments of enemy ships drifted above the colony like scattered ashes. Fires burned in the distance where wreckage had fallen into the planet's thin atmosphere. The colony had survived the second wave, but everyone knew it was not over. Commander Rel stood at the main screen with his arms crossed. The lights inside the command center were dim. Power was still being directed into the shield system. Laren sat at her console, running checks on every generator. The numbers flickered in red and yellow. Shield is stable at 15%, Laren said. It will hold for a short time, but if they attack again now, it will fall fast. Rel nodded slowly. Then we must be ready before they come back. Outside the station, human soldiers worked quickly. Commander Rian had ordered his team to repair and fortify the eastern platform where the shield had cracked. Portable barriers were set in new lines. Heavy support cannons were moved to higher ground. Engineers from the colony helped them carry power cells and tools. No one rested. On the rooftop, 2 human soldiers adjusted their rail cannons. Sparks lit up the cold air as they welded damaged joints. Below them, other soldiers stacked crates of ammunition and connected new shield nodes to the platform floor. Rian stood near the outer wall. His armor was scratched and burned, but he showed no sign of stopping. His visor was open now, revealing calm eyes that watched the empty sky. Rel walked up to him. We have reports from our scanners, he said. The swarm ships that escaped are regrouping beyond the moon. They are not retreating. They are waiting. Rian nodded. They will strike again. This time, they will not just attack the shield. They will try to land. Rel frowned. How can you be so sure? Rian's voice stayed steady. They lost their leadership. When a swarm loses its main command, it becomes desperate. Desperate enemies hit harder. Behind them, soldiers carried equipment with quiet focus. There were no songs or speeches. Only the sound of boots on metal and the hiss of tools. Laren's voice came through the cum. Commander Rel, power output is still low. If they attack before we rebuild the outer ring, the shield will fail. Rel pressed the cum. Do what you can. Every second matters. Down below in the lower shelter, families sat together. Old Miner Brick held his granddaughter close as the ground shook from construction above. The little girl looked up at him with tired eyes. Will they come again? She asked. Brick nodded slowly. Yes, but the humans will be waiting for them this time. Back on the upper levels, Rian moved through his team. He checked each position. He adjusted the angle of one cannon himself. He helped secure the power cables to a turret. His presence was quiet but strong. The colony engineers followed his instructions without hesitation. One young engineer asked him softly, "Why are you not afraid?" Rian looked at the engineer. "I have seen worse. Earth taught us to face storms, not to run from them." The engineer swallowed and nodded. Something in Rian's voice made the fear in his chest smaller. As the work continued, the colony sensors picked up movement. Laren's voice filled the cum again. "Commander, swarm activity detected near the moon. They are increasing their numbers. Estimated time to contact is 40 minutes.
I'll turn to Rian. They are moving.
Rian looked up at the sky. Then we prepare to strike first. Rel was surprised. Strike first? They outnumber us. Rian's eyes narrowed. That is why we hit them before they can form a clean wave. If we wait, they control the battlefield. If we move first, we control it. Rel stared at him for a moment, and then nodded. Tell me what you need. Give me your engineers for 10 minutes, Rian said. We will set a trap. Rel gave the order at once. The engineers moved toward the eastern platform. The human soldiers opened several containers from their ship. Inside were strange metal devices shaped like discs with blinking lights. These are pulse mines, Rian explained. We plant them on the outer edge of the shield. When the swarm pushes in, the mines create a shock that tears through their holes. We will also build a gravity hook field around the north side. That will pull part of their formation off balance. Rel followed him to the wall. Will it be enough? Rian's answer was simple. It will hurt them, and pain breaks their focus. The engineers worked fast. They planted the mines along the lower ring of the shield wall. Wires ran along the metal floor like black veins. The humans checked each connection twice. Above them, the human ships floated in the quiet dark. Inside the command center, Laren watched the numbers on her screen. The enemy's swarm was moving closer. The countdown ticked down slowly. In the shelter, people listened as heavy footsteps and distant hammering filled the halls. No one spoke much, but something was different now. The silence of fear had turned into the silence of waiting. Rian returned to the rooftop just as the sensors began to beep faster. Laren's voice came through the cum. Contact in 5 minutes. They are coming in heavy formation from the north and east. Rian tapped his cum. Unit 1, on rooftop. Unit 2 and 3 in eastern ring. Ship team, prepare strike formation. His soldiers took their positions. They moved like a single machine. No one asked questions. No one hesitated. Rel watched from the command center. His chest felt tight, but not with fear. Something else burned inside him now. The stars vanished again as the swarm arrived. Hundreds of fighters moved in thick waves. Their dark shapes filled the sky. Their engines burned in a long line behind them. They looked like a living shadow swallowing the horizon. The enemy fired first. Dozens of red streaks hit the colony's shield. The impact shook every wall. Sparks flew from the edges of the dome. Laren shouted, "Shield at 12%. They are testing the outer ring." Rian raised his arm. Now, the mines along the lower ring detonated in a perfect line. A wall of blue light rushed outward. The first line of enemy ships flew straight into it. Several exploded. Others spun out of control. The swarm's formation bent and cracked. Rian shouted, "Ship team, attack pattern Delta. Ground units. Hold fire for 2 seconds, then hit their center." The 3 human ships above the colony shot forward like arrows. Their engines burned bright. They fired straight into the broken section of the swarm. The blasts were clean and sharp. Enemy ships burst apart. Rooftop rail cannons followed the ships. Their shots rained into the gaps the mines had created. In the shelter, Brick felt the ground shake again. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Let it hold." On the battlefield above, the human soldiers fought like they had trained for this their entire lives. Rian moved between positions, calling short orders. His soldiers answered with precise shots. The colony engineers who stayed behind the lines helped reload and carry power cells. The swarm tried to push through the north side. Rian turned toward it. Activate the hook. One of his soldiers pressed a control. A gravity field formed like a silent wave. Half of the swarm's formation was pulled sideways. They crashed into their own lines. "Good hit," Rian said. The enemy fired again, but their attacks were scattered now. Their perfect shape was gone. Laren shouted, "Shield holding at 9%, but pressure is lower than expected." "Your trap worked." Rel let out a breath he did not know he was holding. "Keep it up." Outside, the human ships circled the swarm. They did not fight head-on. They sliced through from the sides, tearing the enemy apart piece by piece. Their pilots moved like they were dancing with danger. On the rooftop, 2 soldiers aimed at the biggest enemy ship still standing. They fired their cannons together. The shots hit the same point. The ship cracked in half. The sky over Varen Point was once again filled with fire. But this time, the fire did not belong to the swarm alone. It belonged to humans too. Rian pressed his cum. "Push them back. Do not let them form again." His soldiers answered with a single word. Yes, the enemy began to break. Their lines fell apart as more of their ships burned. Those that survived turned away and tried to flee. Laren's voice came through the cum again. They are retreating. I repeat, the swarm is retreating. Rel leaned on the console and closed his eyes for a second. Then he opened them and stared at the screen. The black wave that had come to destroy them was fading again. On the rooftop, Rion watched the retreat. His armor was blackened from the fight, but his stance was steady. One of his soldiers approached. "Commander, they are pulling back fast." "Do we chase?" Rion shook his head. "No, we protect the colony. This is their turning point, not ours." Rel came up to the rooftop and stood beside him. "You stopped them again," he said. Rion looked at the sky. "No, we made them remember that this place is not easy prey." In the shelter, Brick's granddaughter looked up as the walls stopped shaking. She whispered softly, "They are still here." Brick smiled. "Yes, and they are not leaving." Above the colony, the last of the swarm ships disappeared into the darkness beyond the moon. The human ships formed a defensive line. The colony was still standing. The shield flickered weakly, but it was alive. The people of Varen Point gathered near the lower levels and stared at the rooftop where the humans stood. There were no speeches. There were no loud cheers. But in their hearts, they all felt something strong. Rel looked at Rion and said this was the turning point. Rion nodded. "Yes, now they know we will not fall." The morning light over Varen Point came slowly. It fell across the broken fields and the cracked shield walls. It touched the burned metal where enemy ships had crashed during the night. For the first time in many days, the colony saw a clear sky. There were no swarm shadows moving above them. The stars were still visible, but the sun was rising strong behind the hills. Commander Rel walked through the outer platform with a heavy step. The ground was black from the fighting. Rail cannons still stood on their mounts. Their barrels were warm even after the night. Human soldiers were already repairing the damaged sections. Colony workers joined them without hesitation. No one gave orders. Everyone simply worked side by side. Rel stopped near the shield wall and looked up at the sky. He saw the 3 human ships floating above like silent guardians. Their dark hulls carried burns and scratches from the battle, but they had not fallen. He felt something heavy lift from his chest. For the first time since the distress signal had gone unanswered by others, he allowed himself to breathe freely. Inside the command center, Liren was checking power readings. Several engineers were helping her replace damaged circuits. The shield was offline, but the core was still functional. That meant the colony could rebuild. She typed quickly and then looked up at the big screen where Rel's image appeared. "Commander," she said, "power will return in 3 hours. Communications are already stable." Rel's voice came back through the speaker. "Good. We need that comm system working as fast as possible." Laren looked at the engineers. They all nodded and went back to work. The entire colony had changed. The silence of fear was gone. It had been replaced with the noise of people rebuilding their home. On the rooftop, Commander Rion stood with his soldiers. Their armor carried dust and scorch marks, but their stance was steady. They had not returned to their ship yet. They stayed close to the colony walls, helping with security and repairs. One soldier, Mira, pointed toward the valley. "Look," she said. Rion turned. A long line of colony workers was moving toward the field. They carried metal panels, tools, and power cells. Their faces were tired, but focused. Some were still bandaged from the earlier attacks, but none of them turned away from the work. The humans had fought the enemy, but the colony people were fighting to rebuild. Rion respected that deeply. Rel climbed up to the rooftop to meet Rion. He looked older than yesterday. The battle had added weight to his face, but his eyes held strength. He extended his hand to Rion. Rion shook it firmly. "You saved this place," Rel said. Rion shook his head. "We answered when no one else would. The colony saved itself." Rel looked at the horizon. "I will not forget what you did. My people will not forget either. We did not come for memory or reward," Rion said. "We came because this is what Earth stands for. If a call is made, we answer." Rel nodded slowly. His chest filled with quiet respect for the man standing in front of him. The humans did not boast. They did not speak loudly. They acted, and their actions changed everything. Meanwhile, inside the shelter below, old Brick sat with his granddaughter. She leaned against him with a tired smile. The girl had not slept during the battle, but she was smiling now. Outside, the sound of hammers and machines filled the air. She looked up at her grandfather. They did not leave us. Brick placed his hand on her head. No, child. They stayed. When others turned away, they came. She nodded softly. They are brave. Yes, Brick said. They are Deathworlders. They grew on a world that teaches strength. When they fight, they do not run. And when they stand with someone, they do not break their promise. The girl listened carefully. She did not fully understand what Deathworlders were. She could feel the truth in his voice. Up in the sky, the human ships opened a communication channel with the Union network. The colony's transmission towers were back online. Rel entered the command center with Rion beside him. Laren turned from her console. Communication link is clear, she said. We can send a full report. Rel looked at Rel. I want the entire galaxy to hear this. Rel nodded once. Rel stepped forward to the console and began to speak. His voice was calm, but strong. To all listening stations of the Galactic Union, this is Commander Rel of Varen Point. We sent out a distress signal when the swarm attacked. No one came. No one answered. But Earth did. His voice echoed through the command center. The technicians stopped their work to listen. Outside, soldiers paused on the walls. Colony workers raised their heads. Rel continued. The swarm came in waves. They tried to crush us. They almost succeeded. But a single human strike group stood against them. They did not wait for orders. They did not wait for permission. They came because someone needed help. They fought with everything they had. They stood on our walls and turned the tide. He looked at Rion. We are alive because they answered. Laren pressed the command to send the transmission. Across the Union, the message traveled through relay stations, satellite links, and comm arrays. Worlds far from the rim received the words. Captains in safe fleets heard it. Politicians in secure cities heard it. Ordinary people heard it too. Rel ended his message with a single sentence. If the galaxy ever forgets what courage looks like, remember this day. Remember Earth? Silence filled the room for a moment after the transmission ended. Then people started clapping softly. It was not loud. It was not forced. It came from honest hearts. Rion looked at the screen where the transmission map blinked green. The message is out, Laren said. Rel turned to Rion. They will know. Outside, life in the colony began to settle into a new rhythm. Supply pods that had been hidden underground were opened and shared. People worked together, not out of fear, but out of a new strength. Children came out of shelters. The sun rose higher, and light fell on faces that had survived the storm. Human soldiers walked through the colony, helping wherever they could. One soldier fixed a power connector on the water plant. Another carried medical packs to the clinic. Mira taught a few of the colony guards how to hold their weapons more firmly. There was no wall between them now. They were not outsiders anymore. They were part of the same fight. In the upper hangar, Rion stood with his team. He opened the cargo bay of their ship and checked the systems. His soldiers were tired, but their movements were steady. They knew their mission was not over. Somewhere beyond the moon, part of the swarm had escaped. It would return one day. But now the colony was no longer weak. Rel approached Rion again. Will you leave? He asked. Not yet, Rion answered. We will stay until your defenses are strong. The swarm will come again. We must make sure you can stand without us. Rel smiled for the first time since the attack began. Then we will build together. Above the colony, the human ships slowly moved into formation. Their engines hummed like a distant heartbeat. The crew on board prepared to scan the surrounding space for any sign of the enemy, far away on other worlds. Rel's message began to spread. News networks repeated it. Union citizens whispered it. Some were shocked. Some were silent. But many were moved. They saw the image of the human ships standing over the battlefield while the colony still burned below. They saw ordinary humans fighting against overwhelming numbers and winning. On one distant station, a small crew of miners gathered around a screen. One of them said, "They came for them. Maybe they will come for us too, if we ever need help." On another world, a captain of a defense fleet looked at the report and lowered his head. He had ignored the call from Varen Point. Shame burned inside him, and also something else. Respect. On Earth, the transmission returned to command. Earth's leaders listened to Rel's voice and said nothing at first. Then they gave a single order. Prepare more response teams. The legend of the Deathworlders grew not from their weapons, but from their choice to stand when others did not, back on Varen Point. The colony finished its first day after the battle. Fires were out. Power lines hummed again. Children laughed near the inner square, where people shared warm food. A group of human soldiers sat with colony workers. They exchanged stories quietly. The bond between them was growing like roots in solid ground. Rion walked alone to the edge of the wall. He stood there with the wind blowing gently against his armor. He looked at the sky, where the swarm had come from. His face was calm. He had seen battles before. He would see more in the future. But this place had earned a place in his heart. Mira walked up behind him. "Commander, we have finished repairs on the ship. The team is ready." Rion nodded. "Good. We will stay until their shield is fully rebuilt." Mira looked at the colony below. "They are strong people. They just needed time," Rion said. "And someone to stand with them." Rel joined them on the wall. "You have given them more than protection," he said. "You gave them hope." Rion turned toward him. "Hope is a weapon too. Stronger than any gun." Rel looked at the sun setting on the horizon. "The swarm will return someday," yes, Rion said. "But next time, they will not face a broken colony. They will face a strong one, and they will not face it alone." Night returned, but this time it did not bring fear. Lights from the colony burned bright. Human ships formed a shield in orbit. Patrol drones scanned the empty dark. The people slept with strength in their hearts. The next morning, Liren sent the first full report to the Union Council. The message was simple. The colony stood. Earth's had answered. The swarm was broken.